Yeah. So it's 6 o'clock.
Dear Father in heaven, we are so very grateful to be here this evening in this city council meeting. We pray that thou might be with those who are leading us, that they will have thy spirit to guide and direct them. We are grateful for this great city of 29 Palms and for the great progress that they're making, and especially for the Phoenix Center, which is turning out to be such a beautiful addition to 29 Palms. We pray that all goes well with the tour and with the dedication. We're grateful for all that thou hast blessed us with. We pray that thou continue to watch over and protect this city and those who are leading it. And we pray also, Father, that we might always remember thee and to remember thy Son, Jesus Christ. And we say this humbly, in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bildering,
Here.
Councilmember Klink,
Here.
Councilmember Mintz,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wright,
Here.
Mayor Ogilvy,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. And there were no closed session announcements. City Manager, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are none.
Okay. These proceedings may be viewed on demand on the City of 29 Palms website at www.29palms.org. You may also live stream this meeting by going to our website and clicking on the meeting agendas link. No awards and presentations. Okay, there it is. All right, and I'll read the proclamation. This is for Black History Month. Whereas many diverse ethnic and racial groups have all played a vital and positive integral part and contribute to the promulgation of America's unique social, cultural, scientific, political, and economic character, and whereas the City of 29 Palms takes pride in joining Americans throughout the country in recognizing February 2022 as Black History Month, and whereas we believe emphasis needs to be on putting forward people of African descent in all of our complex and multifaceted humanity rather than relying on tired old stereotypes that perpetuate negative perceptions, and whereas the City of 29 Palms is desirous of making a bold statement to honor and celebrate the achievement of our African American citizenry, determines that our municipality should communicate this desire by way of official declaration for the month of February, and whereas acknowledge the significant contributions of how our diverse culture enriches and broadens the American experience, of which Black heritage is an inseparable part, as it waves through our country's history, profoundly influencing every aspect of our lives, as well as other dominant culture groups. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the City of 29 Palms does hereby proclaim February 2022 to be Black History Month, and encourages all all residents to observe this month. Dated the 8th of February, Carmelita Ogilvy, Mayor. Now, council's comments and reports of staff meeting. We'll start on the end with Councilmember Klink.
Thank you, Mayor Ogilvy. I'd like to wish everybody in 29 Palms, especially right here in 29 Palms and in the Morongo Basin, a happy birthday celebrating in February. Farmers Market seems like it is really picking up steam down there in the Project Phoenix area, and I encourage everybody to go down and take a look at it. It's Saturday mornings from 8 to 1. Also, the girls and boys basketball teams are playing in the gym now, so it's fun to go down there and watch them for a little bit. And I had a Zoom meeting with SBCTA on last Wednesday, discussion about a lot of things that are happening down there in San Benito County, down the San Bernardino, Fontana area. Nothing for us quite yet. And that's it.
Councilmember Mintz.
Yes, ma'am. We had the Zoom meeting with the VHR, was the last one we had last Wednesday. It was open to the public. We had quite a few from the public participate, so we did it at night at 6 p.m. So I thought it went quite well. And that's going to be coming to the Planning Commission and the council. Are they still doing the tours tomorrow at 4:30? Okay, tomorrow at 4:30, they are doing tours of the Cultural Center and the gymnasium. And then, of course, the State of the City will be at 5:30 inside the Cultural Center. So hope everyone can be there or at least listen to it on when we do it. So that's it. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended the VHR meeting with Councilmember Mintz. That's the only meetings I had this month so far, and been touring Farmers Market. Like I said, it's been a big success, and I'm about to witness a couple of games, and my daughter also plays in the gym, so Project Phoenix it's been fun. It's been an eye-opener. It's been a blessing. It's not even done yet, and it just looks amazing out there. So congratulations to the staff and all the hard work so far. Looks amazing. That's all I have.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did attend a meeting with Congressman Obernolte, and we did get a tour of Project Phoenix. And I've been doing the farmers market also. I actually got a chance to get some ball peanuts. That's a southern thing, but anyway, that was good. And then I want to wish my 4th grandbaby a first happy birthday this month, Maria. So, and that's it, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. I do want to let the public know I attended a Mayor Academy, just in case you never heard of anything like that. It does exist, and it was very helpful as far as my duties and that I should be conducting as mayor of 29 Palms. Also, I was also in the meeting with Congressman Obernolte, and we got to see and share Project Phoenix with him and his wife and some of his staff members, which was also always great. It's a good thing to be able to brag on your city about something. And let's see, I attended the swap meet Saturday, and if you have not attended the swap meet, you need to get out there and go and see it. It's bustling, it's alive, I think we are rivaling Joshua Tree now with our swap meet, which makes me happy. And then also, I would just like to say that try and come out when we have our State of the City, where you can hear Councilmember Mintz, and also you can get a tour of Project Phoenix for yourself. So don't miss that wonderful opportunity. And that is it.
Mayor Ogilvy.
Yes, and I can't sing, but I think we should try and sing happy birthday to Councilmember Joe Klink. But I'm going to turn my mic off, but I am going to sing.
When is this day? When's the day?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Joel. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, many,
I
many
hope so.
more. All righty. So then now we're going to go to the consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are to be considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately by the council. The public will be given an opportunity to comment on the consent calendar's item prior to the city council action. And are there any council members that would like to pull anything from the consent calendar? Okay, and is there anyone from the public who would like to pull something from the consent calendar? All righty. Okay, then,
Madam Mayor, I would, no, I totally forgot.
I'll make the motion that we accept.
He
I'll
is getting
I'll
older.
second it.
He is
I make
getting
the motion we accept the consent calendar. I don't have to abstain from anything, so I thought it'd be nice if I could do it for once.
Well, why didn't you go like?
I'll
I
second.
just, well, no, it's fine.
Second.
okay,
Thank goodness I
roll
did
call.
forget what I was gonna say.
Councilmember Buildering,
Aye.
Councilmember Klink,
Aye.
Councilmember Mintz,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Wright,
Aye.
Mayor Ogilvy.
Aye.
Approved 5-0.
All righty.
I think it's like the Muppets, the old guys on the balcony over here. You guys probably shouldn't be sitting together. Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, the next item is the public hearing on redistricting. However, it was noticed for 6:30, so we'll have to skip that one and come back to it when it's approximately
Okay.
6:30, please.
All righty. Then we'll move to discussion and potential action items. Shade structure at City Hall in Lucky Park.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Mr. Marshall will be giving this presentation, which I think he's just right outside the door here, so. It's a 60-second delay, so you can hear the.
All right, you have the thing up on it. So good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Here today to take this off. To talk to you about two different projects, kind of similar projects, though. One is some ADA enhancements here at City Hall. So, as you know, this enclosure out here is years and years old. It's falling apart. We did get some cost estimates to replace it. They were around $25,000. So as an alternative, we thought perhaps getting a shade structure, oh, my apologies, out in front here. We've, similar to what we did at Lucky Park during COVID, those shade structures over the playgrounds. So we looked at that. We reached out to our usual vendor on this and got the quotes that are in front of you. If you can open the option 1, Frank. So that would be a single structure here. So what we would do is we would take down this existing enclosure and then put that single shade right over the door heading out to the east. Now, the real option we're recommending is 2 of those, more to extend that shade and block the morning sun from coming into the facility like this. So the only big construction thing that is part of it is obviously the engineering's already done, but we would have to, footings, things like that, so there would be a little closure. We'd have to move the flagpole, and then we have about $2,500 to take down that enclosure. So this is, I'll speak to these 2 separate and answer questions separate because this is very different than Lucky Park.
Yeah, and Madam Mayor, members of the council, one thing, as I was briefing the council on this, as Mr. Marshall mentioned, part of this, what I focused when I, spoke to each one of you individually in the briefings, this was, 2 things, that I talked about. One was COVID compliance, that you don't have to touch a door, there's, as we have currently, it automatically goes in. And 2, from heating and air conditioning perspective, having that blocking of the morning sun to the east, that shade would prevent. What I failed to do, as Mr. Marshall mentioned, is the current front door is, this change would put us in ADA compliance as well. So that was one thing I just
Yeah,
wanted to
and
underscore there.
the original intention of those kind of enclosures was to create that negative pressure space so the outside heat and the inside air conditioning wouldn't bleed through. You'd have this kind of neutral zone, similar to what hospitals do. Obviously, this one was executed in a different manner. There's no air pressure generated in there other than heat that builds up. So, but right now, you know, to replace with a Stanley door, similar to what we put in inside, an automatic sliding door, you're looking at about 10 to 11,000 for the door. Then the new enclosures, anywhere between 8 and 15,000. Plus the removal of this one's about $2,500 to just replace it to make it look like it does now, except for having an automatic sliding door. So that's actually as much as this shade structure, the single option shade structure.
I have a question.
Okay.
Have you thought of, I know taking down the front part there, permanent overhang structure for that door?
We did
I mean,
consider.
this here to me does not look good.
Okay. This was, we went with the lower cost option here. Obviously, this was inspired somewhat by Palm Springs City Hall, looking into how they have those shades coming out of the front of their entrances. That's where this idea came from. But when we looked at the cost of what they put into those shade structures, over $300,000, we decided to look at a lower cost option. In general, right now, based on the construction costs that we're seeing in other projects we're pursuing, you would probably be looking somewhere about $250,000 to do a permanent structure out in front of there. And that's, we can't really tell what we would run into connecting that structure to this old structure. You know, when we peeled back the stucco on that overhang and looked at it, what kind of engineering concerns would arise out of that. So, I mean, I can pursue anything you want. This was the most effective option I could find.
How long are they supposed to last?
They're guaranteed for 15 years. There is an upgraded fabric that's guaranteed for 25 years. It's a pretty complex fabric. If you look at the issues we had with someone stabbing one at Lucky Park, that new one we put up, someone shoved a stick through it. It's actually designed in its seams with loops so that if a tear begins, it stops at the next loop. So there was a small hole and they're coming to patch it under warranty, so.
And they,
These are the same, these would be the
warranty with
same,
wind?
15 years, yeah. Well, they do warranty wind up to 150 miles an hour. That's all designed in the engineering. The engineering's pretty complex in these, so they show you every angle that the wind could push on it. These are the same type of canvas that's at Lucky Park Pool that have been up for over 10 years. So it's the same fabric that would be on top, that's on top of Knott Sky Park and Lucky Park playgrounds now, so. And the color options, are wide and vary, so we can blend to make it more aesthetically pleasing. This, you can't really tell in this picture, but in the upper left corner, that's actually a slight little pitch up. It's 1 foot higher to make water cascade away if there is a rainstorm. So gives it a little flair in the look as well.
And you say doing it another way of putting like a cover, not a, you know how they make covers and then they have, it's
Like permanent structure.
permanent, yeah.
Yeah,
You
that-
say it's
you
gonna
would
cost
use-
250,000 to do
Well,
that?
we're right now, we're getting estimates, like for instance, I've been working on the animal shelter, and that's been one of the big delays in getting that going is engineering and architecture cost estimates of $60,000 to $90,000 just to give us a design. And then from there, construction costs are still dramatically up right now, so.
Yeah, this is all pre-engineered and
Yeah.
prefabricated,
Yeah,
so.
the cost that you see here is all in 100%. That's $500 to move the flagpole, the new footing, adjust the light, all of that. We went full all in, so.
And it's not permanent though? It can be moved?
These are permanent. These are anchored into a 6-foot footing in the ground. Yeah, so. I can provide you more samples. We have some brochures that, we dealt with USA Shade on the parks, and they gave us some brochures. And they actually sent us samples of Palm Springs, La Quinta, Indian Wells, these similar projects they've done.
So if we gave maybe, so the issue is visual?
Yeah, that just looks
So if we gave
corny to me.
an artist's version of it, that you could see what it would look like when it's finished, would that help?
Might,
Okay.
just
They gave us renderings last time. This, we were in a time crunch. The salesman got COVID. You know, we all had COVID. I had COVID at the same time, so that kind of delayed getting, you know, but they did give us renderings of Lucky Park of how it would look from every angle. So I can get that for this project if you'd like.
What color are you talking about?
The color we had was kind of a tan, a desert tan, but there was also a red that kind of blended with the fascia, kind of more of that brick color, the terracotta kind of color. So it was really, that wasn't here. It was just you approve this, then we come to you for the fine details of pole color, you know, the material color, all of that.
Any other questions? Any-
Sorry? Whatever the will of the council is, do you want us to bring it back on, to have an artist rendering of it, some renderings of it, so you can see what it visually would look like?
I would like to see it, because right now I would not be able to vote for that.
So, yeah, we would like,
Only one part of it, you know, because there's two parts of it. The second part is Lucky Park, so.
Okay, so I'll get those renderings for you. So then, on the Lucky Park portion of it, what we're proposing there is on the Lucky side, the bleachers on north and south, those are already on top of concrete. A 20 by 20 shade, it's just a basic rectangle, a standard pitch, right over top of those. There's up there, Frank, there's the only rendering up higher.
No rendering?
Just go up, you can see the one rendering. It's just a standard rectangle over those. Where the added cost comes in my proposal is on the Stevens side, we are not in ADA compliance. So, as you know, anytime that we do these staff approaches, these projects, if there's some other upgrade that needs to be done like that, we do it at that same time. So what we propose there is currently, if you're familiar with Stevens side, sorry I don't have an image, but there's that distance between the two sets of bleachers that's grass right now. So you can't bring a wheelchair near the field. The sidewalk is compliant, but around the actual bleachers is not. So we're proposing to put a single shade structure between those two fields, move the bleachers underneath them back to back, and then put concrete in that whole area to make it even. So that way wheelchairs could come up front, they have access to the bleachers, and then the bleachers would be back to back. We'd have to relocate the trash can and then add some concrete in that grass area right there.
That's that's the,
Yeah.
not our side.
Yeah.
No, our side is already completely concrete.
Yeah, the only thing we have to do with the bleachers on the north field, on the Lucky side, is we have to move them a few feet that way because there's a power pole there, so we have enough room for the actual structure. On the south field, we don't have to do anything to that one, just anchor it. I mean, we'll have to cut the concrete and put in footings to handle the wind load, but that's it.
And then I have a question on that one.
Okay.
I know that a lot of parents bring their own chairs, and they sit in the chairs, not underneath this thing.
Yeah.
What is the average of how many people are sitting under there? We're gonna spend almost 60,000 for that one?
Well, actually, Joel, what happens is on the bleachers, where the parents put their stuff is on the front part of them, and they end up bringing portable shades, the ones you pop up, and they put them in the bleacher so that the shade kind of covers them going this way. So this would actually let more people be able to watch the games from that area, because this is bigger than the bleachers, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so they'll be able to use both sides, and when the wind blows, some of those pop-ups are very dangerous, actually. They do blow. And
Well,
it's pretty brutal. The sun beats down on that area, on both those areas, because of the concrete.
And the other aspect of this that's kind of wouldn't normally just be inherent from it is fly balls, things like that, having the shade structure. The way the fence is currently, the current height of the fence, with this structure in place, a ball coming over and hitting someone in the stands that's not paying attention wouldn't happen anymore. So that was that was why Palm Springs did their big upgrade at their bleachers. Actually, they pitched theirs forward to protect people from fly balls, and foul balls.
any other questions?
And you can bifurcate the recommendation if you only want to approve one of them and delay the others, so whatever the will of council is.
Okay,
Does it have to go to the public first, or you ready for motion?
okay. Any questions from the public? Okay, then it's back to the council.
Are you ready for motion,
Yes,
Madam Mayor?
I am.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Lucky Park addition to the shades and bring back the City Hall.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Mintz,
Aye.
Councilmember Klink,
Aye.
Councilmember Buildering,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Wright,
Aye.
Mayor Ogilvy.
Aye.
Approved 5-0 to approve the Lucky Park shade structure and bring back the City Hall structure.
And Madam Mayor, it's 6:25, but I think the Pioneer Park, item number 8, I think I can get through it fairly quickly if you want to take
Okay.
that.
Let's continue.
As long as the technology moves a little faster here. As this is loading, Madam Mayor, members of the council, the item in front of you this evening, as the council is aware, the city was unfortunately not awarded Pioneer Park for the development, but staff does believe that, based on guidance from the council, that we will continue to look for funding for Pioneer Park. So with the process, Prop 68, we had to find willing sellers, and actually that's not it. Anytime you want to try to go through this fast. So here is the visual of the area there. Adobe Road is is the top there of the diagram. And then on Sullivan there, right next to the current Theater 29 parking lot, is the other parcel. So both of those property owners are willing sellers, which we had to go through the process. So we think it's prudent at this time to purchase those properties and in furtherance of the project, once we can acquire the funding to develop it, as opposed to not purchasing it and have to negotiate again some later time in our future. So that is our recommendation from staff, and be happy to answer any.
Okay. Any questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Back to the council. I'm looking for a motion.
I make a recommendation that the city council purchase the land needed to develop Pioneer Park in the amount of $211,800 plus customary closing costs, and authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Klink,
Aye.
Councilmember Mintz,
Aye.
Councilmember Buildering,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Wright,
Aye.
Mayor Ogilvy.
Aye.
Approved 5-0.
Okay.
And I'm going to text City Attorney Munoz. I don't see him on the go-to meeting here.
Patrick, I'm sure he's having a problem.
So Todd, Allison, as we're waiting for Patrick to join, just the sound check, can you hear us okay? And just want to make sure we could hear you.
Yes, I can hear you okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, and I think here comes Patrick right now. Patrick, is that you? Yes? Okay.
Unfortunately, I am not able to get on your meeting with anything other than audio. Sorry about that. I've been trying to log in. I just haven't been able to make it work.
Okay, so I'll kick this off, Patrick, then turn it over to you. Let's see here. Okay, so Madam Mayor, members of the council, we're here this evening as a recommendation to hold a public hearing regarding the state mandated redistricting process pursuant to Elections Code Section 21607 and 21607.1. Here with us this evening is City Attorney Munoz. With NDC is Todd Tatum. Then also with our outreach consultant, Allison Torres with Trepepi Smith. Mr. Munoz will kind of kick off the staff report, then we'll turn it over to the other two. So, Mr. Munoz?
Good evening, everybody, and I do apologize I wasn't able to get the visual part of my system to work here. In any event, we're here tonight, as City Manager indicated, as part of our third public hearing relating to the redistricting process. The process requires 4 public hearings before the council can adopt a map. And as we've discussed in the prior hearings, you're required to look at your map once every 10 years after the census and make adjustments as may be necessary. So this is the third public hearing, and it's the first hearing at which the council is able to take into account maps that have been put together for it. There are a number of criteria that we've talked about in the prior hearings that apply to the redistricting process. And in the presentation that Todd from NDC provides to you, he's going to cover what those criteria are and talk about the proposed maps that we have. There's a significant issue that we've talked about previously that's outlined in your staff report that I'd like to cover this evening. I'm not going to cover it in the same level of detail as is in the staff report, presuming you've all had a chance to read that, but I want to kind of cover the highlights of it. And the specific issue is that of the various criteria that apply, one of the criteria is the idea that districts have contiguous boundaries, that they're not broken up. And the language of the law is very clear. It says, to the extent practical, when it talks about that criteria. There are a number of other criteria which also have the to the extent practical sort of catch-all to them. And the problem we have when we look at all of the different criteria together is that it's not really possible to meet all of the criteria. We could try and meet some, but then we wouldn't be meeting others. And at the end of the day, the solution that staff recommends to you that makes the most sense is that we make and continue to make an exception on the contiguous boundary criteria on the basis that it is not practical in the city of 29 Palms to do that. It gives us the opportunity to meet all of the other criteria. I think the staff report mentions that where you're faced with a solution that's just not perfect. And so that's where this practicality issue comes in. And the issue is, of course, the base. The base, if you, I don't know, Mr. City Manager, if you want to put up one of the maps just for visual effect, the base is at the north end of the city, and before the base was annexed, the shape of the city up in that northern area is sort of, I think of it as almost like a sort of a stovepipe or a panhandle. So we're not dealing with a situation where we have a large base that's contiguous to a long east-west boundary of the city. It only touches the city in that very small geographical area. The challenge we have is that each of the districts we create has to be population balanced, in addition to this contiguous boundary issue. The population of the base is such that it would be the equivalent of 2, if not 3. It could be all of 2 and part of 3, or part of 2 and all of 1. I mean, there's different ways you could, slice and dice it. But ultimately, you're looking at it being part of as many as 3 districts based on the current city population. So, in evaluating what to do about that, and this issue came up several years ago when we first districted, the determination was made to take the base population and divide it up, and to put a portion of the population into each of the 5 districts that the council has authorized. The composition of the base is further complicating our districting efforts, because people who live on base, service members, are entitled to keep their voter registration as the location where they lived when they enlisted. So of a pretty significant base population in the last election, we had something like 612, I believe is the number, registered voters on the base. Then the issue gets further complicated by the fact that people who are enlisted, whether they're, let me rephrase that, people who are active duty, whether enlisted or in the officer corps, are not eligible to serve on the city council. This whole exercise that we're going through is based on the California Voting Rights Act. And the purpose of the California Voting Rights Act is to create equal opportunities for minority representation on city councils. So what that means is we're talking about, at the end of the day, the people who get elected and the voters who vote for those people. Based on the fact that most of the base population is not eligible to be on the city council, if we make the assumption that population balancing is intended to correlate to the opportunity for people to be on the council, to serve on the council, and certainly it's correlated to the ability to vote for those people, we're just stuck with this very difficult situation. We did some research with the base and kind of came up with our best estimate of 8% of the base population, total population, being persons who might be eligible to be on the city council, in other words, not being active military. So if you took that 8% and you made the assumption it would apply pro rata to the 612 registered voters, which is probably not an accurate assumption. The number is actually probably worse than what I'm about to propose. You'd end up with something like 50 people on the entire base, 50 people out of 2 or maybe 3 districts would even be eligible to be on the city council. So in looking at our options, staff is recommending that we continue to divide up the base just because the practicalities of the situation, and dispersing the base population to each of the 5 different districts that we'll end up with. In doing that, it kind of makes sense if you think about what the CVRA is intending to do and what the base population is like. So there'll be a lot of discussion later on about communities of interest and not dividing communities of interest. And a community of interest or a neighborhood, it's an area, I mean, kind of common sense tells you what it is. It's an area that has similar interests, and they want to be able to ensure that the city council is listening to them and carrying out their desires and their goals. They want to have a voice. Well, the base is comprised of persons who are transient. Typically, you're dealing with people who are not married, or at least not married to someone else who's on the base. And that's statistically the overwhelming amount of the population out there. You're dealing with individuals who will be deployed somewhere other than 29 Palms, on average 6 out of every 18 months. And so in the 3 to 4 years that they may be stationed at the base, they're likely to be gone 6 to 12 months at another location. So they don't have the same level of community interest that someone might have that, for instance, lives in the Hanson Tract. And a very important thing to take into account is that when the city annexed the base, it entered into a pre-annexation agreement with the Marine Corps, and that annexation agreement, pre-annexation agreement, basically prohibits the city from exercising any of its police powers on the base. So what that means is you can't adopt the zoning law out there. You can't regulate what the signs look like at a fast food restaurant on the base. So in turn, what that means is that the base residents don't have the same level of interest in being able to impact and influence city council decisions. So if something has to be divided in terms of, neighborhoods that ultimately, when you do this districting, you have to draw lines. Dividing up the base makes a lot of sense because you're not dividing up what would be a commonly understood community that has interests that the city council would be interested in addressing or even could address. Again, this is not a game of perfect. We're trying to figure out a solution for an impossible problem. And we think this solution makes sense, and we think that if the exception, to the extent practical, has any meaning at all, this is a perfect example of where it would have that kind of meaning. There's been a lot of input from a group that I understand largely is in the Indian Cove area on this issue. And at the beginning of the various emails that I've seen, their concerns were to make sure that the Indian Cove neighborhood didn't get divided. And we think that the maps that have been presented to you to start considering achieve that. So we're pleased that we were able to, I think, accommodate what the original requests were. We think that the maps that will be presented to you, and Mr. Tatum will discuss this further later on, really keep the recognized communities of interest and neighborhoods in the city undivided, and we think that's an important and positive outcome. But in addressing their concerns, one of the things that has happened is we have been presented with a map that shows 7 districts. That map is on the city's website. It's not included in the maps section where we presented maps for consideration by the public and the council, because at this point in time, there's only an option based on council direction for 5 districts, not 7 districts. But we did include it under the community comment sections of the website so people can see it. It was important that we have transparency and people know what their neighbors are saying. We also included it in the staff report that's before you this evening. And if Mr. Lukina, if you could put the 7-district map up, I think it's helpful to see what the proposed map was. one of the issues with this map is that it, at the bottom, or at the end rather, of the whole analysis, it doesn't address the actual problem that we have of dividing up the base. It's not really possible to, even with 7 maps, get around the issues that I discussed a few moments ago. All it does is it dilutes the overall population. And I think that the map that they presented really demonstrates that very well. There's a proposed district, which is identified as District 6. That district is entirely on the base. And as best as we have been able to determine through our due diligence, and we believe this is accurate, 100% of the population of this proposed District 6 would live in military group quarters or barracks. So it seems to be a logical presumption that if you're talking about people who live in barracks, you're talking about people who are active duty military. And that means that 100% of that district, if it were to exist, would not be eligible to be on the city council. So if you were to adopt this map, the problem you would have is that there wouldn't be anybody to run for one of your district council seats, and you wouldn't be able to appoint someone because when you appoint, it has to be a person that lives in the district. The other 2 districts that they propose have basically the same problems I was discussing earlier. You end up with this issue where you don't have truly a balanced population. If there is any correlation between the population and your eligibility to be on the council, and we think that if that issue were litigated, that a court would likely say that there is, because again, the whole point of the CVRA is to enable persons to more easily be elected if they're minorities. And the reason you don't truly have population balancing is because of the statistics we were talking about before. A huge percentage of the people in each of these other 2 proposed districts are not eligible to be on the council. You can try and make different assumptions. We made some in the staff report about how you might apply the 8%. But at the end of the day, what is very clear is that there will be a very large number of people from 2 districts that would not be eligible to be on the council, and 100% of the people from the 3rd district that would not be eligible to be on the council if that map were to be adopted. Complicating the whole 7-district issue further are a couple other issues. Number one, and probably most important, this is a council decision. You have given direction that 5 districts make sense. In a city the size of 29 Palms, 7 districts is really not necessary. Think of the difficulties that you have in coming to consensus on issues with 5 council members. Is there really a need in a city the size of yours to have 7 council members? I mean, that's really the policy question for you to make. But more importantly, there's legal obstacles potentially. This is uncharted area, and this is relatively new law, so I can't point to you to a case, but I can tell you what the law says. And it says that when you initially go to districting, you don't have to go through a vote of people, that you are able to convert to by-district elections if you're doing so in furtherance of the purposes of the California Voting Rights Act, which is what you were doing when you converted to district voting, because you were being told by an attorney that if you didn't, that you were in violation of that law and that you'd be faced with a lawsuit. Well, now you are in compliance, and with a 5-district city council system that's slightly rearranged in terms of the boundary of the districts, you will continue to be in compliance with the CVRA. So someone could, in theory, challenge you if you were to, by ordinance, go to a 7-district system, because it would be difficult to say that you were doing it in furtherance of the CVRA, since you will not fix the issue we have with the base by doing that, and because you're already in compliance with a 5-district system. Is certainly, if the council's interested in putting this out to a vote of the people, that's within your discretion. But there was a conscious decision not to put the 7-district map in the maps for the public to consider in the map section, because we didn't want the public to be confused, thinking that a 7-district system was something that the council was even entertaining. Again, as I said earlier, we wanted to include the information because we received it. We think it's important to share it with the council and with the community. We think that, as I said, that the 7-district system doesn't solve the problem that we're trying to address, which is the contiguous nature of the base boundaries, and it actually exacerbates the problem. And finally, there has been some suggestion that you could solve the base problem somehow by, it's a little unclear to me what the suggestion was. I saw an email today that suggested that I must have misunderstood what they were trying to achieve, but bottom line is there was a thought of trying to have an at-large election system in all or part of the base. A little unclear to me what the thought is, but whatever the thought is, I can tell you that it is not supported by the law, that the only thing that the law allows you to do is to have either a complete district system without an at-large component, or a complete district system with an at-large mayor, but any other combination of those events would be a violation of the CVRA. So that really concludes my comments on these issues. I'm very happy to answer any questions you might have.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, at this point, we'll continue with the staff updates. Let me pull up NDC's PowerPoint. And Allison, if you could talk about our outreach efforts, please.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to go ahead and pull up that PowerPoint slide.
Yep, it's up.
Great. Awesome. So good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Allison Torres with Trepeppi Smith, the outreach and consulting firm hired by the city to assist in the redistricting outreach efforts. On this slide, you'll see an outline of the outreach and engagement efforts to date. The City of 29 Palms leveraged a full array of outreach platforms to connect with the public. These included a new dedicated redistricting website, a virtual community workshop where the city's demographers and Trepeppi Smith gathered community of interest feedback and demonstrated the mapping tools. The city utilized the social media channels, including a boosted post which targeted the entire city, as well as press releases and flyers that were distributed to traditional media outlets, and directly called and emailed nearly 30 community leaders and organizations throughout the city and the surrounding area. The redistricting website was launched in late September and has received a total of 2,738 unique website visits to date. The social media boosted post reached over 3,000 people. And as mentioned on this slide, all content is and will continue to be available in English and Spanish. Moving forward, we anticipate to continue the same outreach strategy to ensure all members of the public are aware of the remaining redistricting opportunities. And with that, I would like to open it up to any questions before I hand it over to Todd to take us through the rest of the PowerPoint. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you. Any questions from the council?
And before I turn it over to Todd, Mr. Munoz kind of referenced it. So this is our website, our City of 29 Palms website. And this is, our tabs within our website. We do have a dedicated redistricting tab right here. And if you click on here, this section here, draft maps, are the ones that, are the maps that Todd is going to speak about. Over here in the resource section, you have all the public comment, from the community. And here's the various comments. And one of the comments is that 7-district map that we talked about. So it is documented within our map. So with that, Todd, I'm going to turn it over to you. And on the first slide.
Okay, thank you, Frank. I'm a little behind watching the YouTube video, but I'll just ask you to switch slides when I'm done going along the slides that I have in front of me. Just a reminder to everyone, the state requires a minimum of 4 public hearings. Again, this is our 3rd hearing, and the 4th and final hearing is on March 8th, at which time the council could finalize and choose the map. And once again, our deadline for adoption is April 17th, 2022. Next slide. I just want to give you, for anybody who's new to the process and all of you who've been through this, just a quick update on our redistricting rules and goals. First, there are 3 categories that we follow. First, we want to follow the federal category, which means we follow the federal law. Each district must have equal population. We must follow the Federal Voting Rights Act, and there can be no racial gerrymandering. The second criteria that we follow is the new state law that ranks in order how we follow this criteria. Number 1, the districts must be geographically contiguous, where to the extent practicable. We have to look for undivided neighborhoods and communities of interest. We have to make sure that the districts have easily identifiable boundaries, meaning we follow major roads or freeways or other features that are easily understandable. And we try to achieve compactness, meaning we can't reach around to try to put together groups of people to bypass a different community to put them in the same district. In addition, the state law requires that we not look at any partisanship or political party registration or affiliation. As you'll note in all the available data that we've given to date and anything in the future, we do not show any party registration or affiliation. The third and more traditional redistricting principles that we follow is we want to minimize the shift of voters to different districts. We want to respect the voters' choices and continuity in office. We look to identify any future population growth, and we strive to preserve the core of existing districts as best we can. Next slide, please. On the next slide, we start talking about the initial draft maps. NDC has produced 3 draft maps for your consideration. All 3 of the maps that you'll see tonight have a deviation under 10%. The California Voting Rights Act law states that we have to achieve a total deviation across all districts of 10% or less. The NDC draft map titled TAN is a 4.64% deviation. The draft map orange is 3.30 deviation. And the NDC draft map green is 6.9% deviation. Included in the presentation is also the only map that was submitted by the public. And as Patrick stated earlier, this map does not meet the criteria for your consideration. Next slide, please. I'm including this slide to show you because at the second hearing, we did not have the final state adjusted numbers, but we do now. And as you can see, the current district deviation is at 45.74%. And each district now must contain roughly 5,628 people. Next slide, please. So now we're going to jump into the draft maps that we've produced. As you'll see, each council district has 2 parts, with the base parts roughly population balanced and the non-base parts roughly population balanced. The first map, the draft map TAN, has some changes on the base, but it also makes some changes in the non-base part of the city to make the districts more compact and more aligned with major roads and similar edits. The red dashes that you see are the existing district lines. So you can see where the colors bleed over or move over, how the districts have changed. Next slide, please. The draft map orange has the same base changes as tan, but then makes major changes in how the districts are drawn in the non-base part of the city, as you can see with the lines. Next slide after that. Draft map green. This one only makes the changes on the base, and the non-base portion of the city keeps the current council districts as they currently stand. But it does make big changes on the base due to the big shifting and increasing of the population there. So also to note with these three, where the council members live is not nearly as much of a restraint now as it was at the time of the original mapping due to changes now for the people who are now on the council. So this map is much more compact and aligned along major roads and regions of the city. All three maps leave each council member in their current district, and all three meet population balance and Voting Rights Act requirements and are contiguous to the extent practicable given the realities of the base. Next slide, please. This next slide is again, a picture of the public map showing the 7 districts that we discussed earlier. Next slide after that. So I'll end tonight with the question, do you have any questions about the draft maps? We'll look for direction from the council on what map you prefer or what revisions you'd like to see in the draft maps. And with that, I will turn it back to Frank, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, thank you, Todd. So, Madam Mayor, members of the council, staff is here to answer any questions now or following the public hearing.
Any questions from the council?
I have the one about the current council members in their districts. Maybe Mr. Munoz can tell all the Google professionals out there the law that's not illegal. So, because everyone keeps talking like we're in our districts, they made the districts, we sit in a certain area, and they think that we did it some kind of illegally or it's
Talking
not.
about originally in 2017?
Yeah, and it's still going to happen. Look like if one of these maps we're still kind of in that situation. So I just want them to explain to the Monday morning quarterbacks that what's the law, not just what they feel is right.
Patrick, did you hear that? Or Todd, did you hear that, the question?
Could you repeat it for me, please?
Yeah, sure. So Councilmember Bill Durain asked the question about 2017 because he's getting comments from the public that we did it incorrectly back in, and I'm paraphrasing, but we did it incorrectly back in 2017. We gerrymandered the districts to keep all 5 council members intact.
So in 2017, you were allowed to do that expressly in the law, and what we did at that time was perfectly legal.
Thank you, Patrick.
I just hope he said it loud enough for the people in the back. That's all.
Any other questions from
Let me
the
repeat it
council?
louder. I can shout.
I just want people online to make sure they heard it.
Yeah, the streaming side of it, let's go straight down.
We don't even have the same 5 council members. So,
Correct, yeah. That is correct, yeah. And this time, that was not expressly in the law, but, as mentioned from Todd, based on where you geographically live, it just kind of works out.
Another thing to bear in mind on the question of did we do something wrong in 2017, you have to remember we were being threatened with what would have been a very expensive lawsuit. Once we were done with our redistricting process, we sent the new districts, the maps of the new districts and the related information to the lawyer that was threatening to sue us, and he was satisfied that what we did complied with the law. No one had a greater interest than he did if we had not complied with the law, to challenge us because he would have automatically been entitled to recover his attorney's fees if he could point out that we had done something wrong.
Any comments from the public? I'll open public hearings. Any comment from the public? Okay. So do I need to say who this is from? Okay, this is from 29 Palms Neighbors. Hi. We were just reviewing the map being distributed by the city as part of the redistricting kit. It says the population of each of the 5 districts must be close to 5,630, with no more than a 563 difference between the largest and the smallest. Reviewing the map, it appears to us we need more than 5 districts in order to accommodate the population of the base at the northeast end of the city, while also meeting redistricting guidelines of equal population contingency and maintaining neighborhoods and communities of interest. The initial 5 districts were drawn between 2010 and 2020 census due to a lawsuit and were based on the existing number of at-large council districts. Now that we have the 2020 census, perhaps the number of districts needs to be reconsidered. Is there any regulation that prevents the drawing of a map which increases the number of council districts in order to accommodate the large population at the northeast end of the city? So that's the only comment we have, so it's back to the council. Close the public hearing.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, is, the discussion on your screen states, we're just looking for direction of, what the council prefers, or any revisions, or whatever your direction is.
Is this the time to comment on the 7 district? I don't think our population has increased to where we need to increase it to 7. I don't, in the way it was proposed, I don't even see how it worked. The attorney also said part of it was illegal, so I'm not personally interested in a 7 district. And when looking at the numbers and the way that it's drawn to make it cleaner, the orange is the one that to me has the cleanest district lines. So that's my comments.
Yeah, my comment is, I like orange and tan. They're cut, keep the neighborhoods together. Green, right there, District 1 already has, you see a little sliver of Indian Cove is probably not in there. So we got to let's keep the neighborhoods together. And like orange and tan looks like they have that. So I like those already. And the numbers, we hire these people to do this. They're the professionals. They know what they're doing. They do this all the time. So I have trust that they're going to meet the requirements that's needed by law. So I like what they're doing. So I got.
Yeah, well, so all these colors, I see different shades, and so I think tan and orange, because I agree with green, it looks like that community is split, and that's one of the things that we want to get away from. So yeah, tan and orange.
I think the green map is the map that we have now. It's just that the base was changed. So to me, that one is definitely out. I myself am leaning towards the orange map. If you look at the population, they're all pretty close. There's one that's minus 113 people, then there's 23 over, 73 over, 62 over, and 43 under. Those are all pretty close to being almost perfect. So I myself would lean towards the orange map.
Like my counterparts here, I lean towards either the orange or the tan, really not having anything more specific, choosing one over the other.
So Todd, from a direction perspective, are we're looking to pinpoint a map, or at least, it sounds like we eliminated green tonight. Is that enough direction for the next meeting?
Yes, and obviously, Frank, I'll be in touch with you prior to the next meeting. And if the council does settle on, for instance, the orange map, and Patrick can correct me if I'm wrong, we can bring the what will be referred to as the preferred map to the next public hearing, at which time you can also introduce your ordinance or resolution, whichever way you're going to pass that map as your preferred map. And if you're not sure, then we can bring them both back and, we can discuss it then. Or if you have any changes that you want in any of the maps, we can do that right away and get them back to you so that we're ready to go for the next hearing.
Yeah. And the deadline, as you mentioned, April 17th, right? That needs to be
Correct.
codified. It's an ordinance, so we have to have a first reading, second reading, 30 days after. Yeah, so that's that March 8th date.
So you could, if
So
you...
Frank, let me just interrupt for 1 second. We can do the new maps by resolution, so you won't have to go through a first reading and a second reading if you prefer to use a resolution, which obviously from a bureaucracy administrative standpoint would be easier. And at the next hearing, my recommendation is that we bring all the maps. If you have one that's preferred, and based on the council comments, it sounds like there may be one, we can indicate that it is the preferred map. But I think it would behoove us to put all of these maps, rather to continue to put all these maps on the website and to present them all at the next council meeting. Tonight is not the day to make the final decision. And between now and the next hearing, council members may have other thoughts. So I think keeping all of your options open is not only a good practice, but it's consistent with what I think the law requires.
Great.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Todd, and thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right, well, good night, everybody. I do apologize that I wasn't able to be smart enough to figure out the technology to be able to see you all on the screens tonight.
All right, thanks, Patrick. Take care.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. All right, Madam Mayor, Council, staff has direction. So.
Okay. Before we go on to the financial report, did I skip 2 sections?
No.
Public, I didn't?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, then we're going to go on to the financial report. Frank?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council, and council member Mintz. I'm going to talk about 99% of this PowerPoint and this discussion. There's a little section of Project Phoenix that I will defer to the end.
Well, just let me know when I gotta leave.
Yeah, it'll be clear at the end. Clear at the end. So thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So the item in front of you is our mid-year budget report. A little bit, what is a mid-year budget report? So each year we adopt a budget annually, and it starts at July 1st, but typically we'll adopt it in May, June, in that time frame. We always come back 6 months later, and hence the mid-year budget report, to kind of communicate to you as the policymakers the oversight of our financials, to ensure that we're on track. Nothing has changed. Things change. Absolutely. A budget is a fluid document, so that's why we bring it halfway through the year. I'd like to recognize Ms. Hernandez, Abigail, here this evening. She has compiled this, did a very good job, so thank you, Abigail. So bottom line, I think, I always, especially when I buy a Christmas present for my wife, I want to tell her right off the bat what it is. So I'll go straight to the end, because that obviously is why we're here. So bottom line, our budget is balanced, and actually there will be a surplus. So we won't be negative, it's positive, so that's a good thing. The other thing is we have money in the bank, we have reserves. So the policy of the council is a 60 to 65% of our expenditures, and we have that in the bank and then some. We are on track with revenues and expenditures through the halfway point of the year. Theoretically, you should be at 50%, but we're plus or minus in different categories, so we're on track. Our cash balance is a little lower this time of year, but that's typical. But some of our revenues are backloaded for the year, so we get them after the 6 months. And two, with Project Phoenix, some of which is reimbursable, meaning we have to spend the money and the state has to reimburse us. And the state's slow, So a lot of our money is out waiting for reimbursement. So that's just one anomaly this year, but typically halfway point our revenues are down. The recommendations, again, go to the end here. So the recommendations on your staff report, the first one is, again, just a review and comment to accept the financial report for the second quarter or mid-year for fiscal year 21-22. Approve the final interfund transfers for the year. And that's cleaning up our books. Things that have changed since you adopted the budget, mainly due to ARPA. ARPA is, I always say American Recovery Act, but American, was it Recovery? So anyway, we live in an acronym world. It's American Recovery Act, bottom line. What is it? Rescue Plan. Yeah, Rescue Plan. So that was that $3 trillion that the Congress passed last year, that the city ultimately received $3.1 million last July, and we'll receive another $3.1 million this coming July. And so that created some changes based on policy, because now we have the resources to spend. First of which is revenue replacement. So how do we get that money into our budget? And that's the question, right? How do we get that money into our budget? Very similar to the CARES Act. That was the original Coronavirus Recovery Act. They came out with some rules that were very specific, and realized that they had to loosen the rules so cities, counties, states can spend the money. And the same held true for ARPA. ARPA came out very specifically of how to spend it, very, I wouldn't say very narrow, but somewhat narrow. And then they expanded it to basically, at the end of the day, give cities the resources to deal with what you deem is appropriate. The easiest way to get that into our budget is quote-unquote revenue loss, revenue recovery. The final ruling, I think it was called, came from the federal government that each city was allowed up to $10 million of revenue loss. So the city is taking that all into revenue recovery, which then in turn releases it for you for policy direction. Okay, so the first transfer that again quote unquote cleaning up our books is to bring into our budget 2.260258, so 2,260,258. You may ask yourself, why is that not $3 million? Last budget year we brought in the $800,000 already. So the sum of that plus the 800 and some odd last year is that 3.1 that we already received. The next item I will defer to the end. That's the one on Project Phoenix, so I'll defer that one to the end. The other items that the council has approved already, that we are just again asking to do these transfers to get our books complete based on policy direction. One of which is the $42,800 that the council authorized for the social equity element of the general plan. So we're asking for that to be transferred over. $100,000 for the re-roof of the city buildings. The $2 million, $2,081,086 for the Lucky Park pool improvement. The pool improvement is over $3 million, but you already allocated some money last year. So the sum of the last year's money, which is $1.5 million, and that cumulatively is for the pool. I will be asking for, oops, went to sleep there. I will be asking for a correction on the this next amount, $169,000 for the property acquisition for Pioneer Park. That amount, as you approved earlier, was $211,800. The next one is $94,000 that you approved earlier today for the shades at Lucky Park. Then the final one, you deferred that, so we, staff, will not, so there won't be any direction on that, at least at this point. Then finally, the one at the end there, where the Parks Recreation Department is looking for needs a new lawnmower for, so we're looking for a transfer of $26,000 for that. So just to run through the PowerPoint real quick, just to kind of give you an overview of where we are. So as mentioned, here's our cash balances that are in the bank, from the general fund dollars, a little, and special fund in our checking account, 6 million. Our investment account, 6.73. Project Phoenix non-housing, 1.5 million left. And Project Phoenix housing money is still about $800,000. And that very specifically will be dollars that we use when we talk about the low-mod housing project here behind City Hall. So when you look at the approved budget, our revenues and expenditures, the top line is our revenues, our second line is our expenditures, and that's what you approved as a budget last year. In theory, at halfway point of the year, you should be at 50%. But as mentioned, revenues, there are revenues that trail, right? So very specifically, property tax, VLF, vehicle license fee in lieu of property tax. That comes in at the end of the year. TOT comes in, after the quarter end. So that is a very typical low percentage, through 6 months of the year. Our top 6 revenue sources, and as mentioned earlier, property tax in lieu of VLF, 0, because again, that's all backloaded. That's each and every year. I think we get that in April. So that's why that is 0. But again, very typical. Property tax is coming in line as it does annually. Sales tax, again, everything should be right around 50%. TOT, we get it 30 days after the quarter. So the 6 months ends December 31st, but we don't get the receipt of all that until 30 days after, so January 31st. So that's why that looks low, but it always is. Same for franchise fees, comes in at the end of the year. And building and road improvements, very specifically, we budget based on, so we, from a revenue perspective, and you'll see also in the expenditure perspective, Charles Abbott and Associates get paid based on permits. So it's at 67 cents on the dollar. So every dollar that comes in for a permit, we pay Charles Abbott 67 cents. So the more permits that come in, the more expenditures there are. So there's a lot of permitting, a lot of activity within our city. So there's a good thing. So revenues are up and expenditures up in both of those categories that you will see. Where do we anticipate us to be at the end of the year? We anticipate, based on our budget that was adopted, we're going to be ahead of the game. But, our revenue is going to be 104% based on what we budgeted, and the expenditures may be a little higher, 101%. So bottom line is we'll be ahead of where we were when we adopted the budget. Where do we anticipate ourselves being at the end of the year by the revenue categories? We think we're on track for property tax. VLF, we think we're on track. Franchise fees, we're on track. As mentioned earlier, building and road permits, we're ahead of schedule. We're getting more permits than we typically do, way ahead there. Sales tax, we use HDL to, keep track of what we consume and forecasting out, and we're doing better. There's more activity in the city. We are looking at, Project Phoenix, and we're looking at that to see, over the next 5 years, let's say, we'll be able to see the impact that we had with that investment. So we're keeping track of that as well. So HDL is working with us. Very specifically on TOT, just so the council is aware, that 1.7 million is a conservative number. We budget conservatively. And very specifically TOT. So property tax, we look at the county, what's the assessed value of how things are increasing, and it's at about 4%, last year. HDL is, we work with them on sales tax. TOT, we have nothing really to do other than, kind of gauge it ourselves. And from a staff perspective, we stay very conservative. So we don't bank on growth. So what we usually do is and we budgeted, and actually even in this, we budgeted conservatively. Last year, fiscal year ending 21, we brought in $1.7 million in TOT. We thought that there was maybe going to be some subsidence with TOT, this coming year. And we were wrong, fortunately. So it's actually coming in at 1.7 million, which is exactly what we brought in last year. So, and we think even that 1.7 is conservative. Through the first 6 months of the year, we're 34%, I think, ahead of the prior year. So the next 6 months, we're forecasting flat, again, being conservative. we don't anticipate growth. So just make sure the council is aware of that. Where does our money come from? This is the pie chart we always show. You know, if you look at the right-hand side of the pie chart, our main revenue source is property tax. That's where our 50%, the property tax in lieu of VLF, and we should just drop off the VLF. This goes back to Gray Davis and the triple flip as you hear it, from the state side of it. There used to be VLF, vehicle license fees, that the city used to get. The state took it and they gave us property tax instead. So that right-hand chart there, both those, the sum of those is 50%. So 50% of our revenue is property tax. That's our big source of revenue. Speaking of property tax, if you look at the years, last couple of years have been pretty good. You can see the prior two, 4%. And we see the houses that are selling a lot more than they were worth, and that kind of pushes it up. Because of Prop 13, those of us who own our houses, it can only go up at 2% each year, right? It can't go any more than that. So, the increase of 4% is based on houses selling for, $20,000 and $30,000 more each year than, prior it was. Expenditures, you want to be at 50% from the year, and everything relatively is. Building and safety, as we mentioned, because the revenue, again, we pay 67 cents on the dollar of a permit coming in. So when revenue's up, expenditures are up. So that's why that's high. We also, so these are by department. We also look at categories. And again, from a categorical perspective, everything is relatively good. Insurance is paid, or it's prepaid. So in the beginning of the year, those are paid earlier. So that's why that's a high percentage. It's not 50%. And again, as mentioned, building and safety is higher. Everything is relative to around 50%. Capital projects, I'll just run through these fairly quickly. The flood control channel, we're on track this year, to have that complete. So that's a 2022 project. Split Rock Bridge, we have this within our budget. We still need to acquire this money. So this is earmarked out there in capital projects. Split Rock Bridge is the planning and development is done, but the funding, and there is a lot of money going to be spent in the next couple of years for infrastructure. So we anticipate acquiring that, but right now we don't. We have it budgeted, but we don't have the funding yet on this. Hatch Sullivan Bike Path, we may transfer, we will. So the next meeting, February 22nd, we'll be bringing this forward and probably transferring some of this money to Amboy, and the Amboy Bike Path is ready to go. Which will probably be in April once it warms up a bit. We'll be doing that project. Neighborhood safety project, that neighborhood safety project, and a little further down, high crash unsignalized intersection. That's that project, that neighborhood project that our assistant city engineer Ken Bailey brought forward to the council several months ago. It's within our neighborhoods, new striping, new signage, rumble strips and other things within our neighborhoods, not our highways, but our neighborhoods, and signalized and unsignalized intersections to improve safety. Lucky Park light poles, we have an annual process to go through to replace old poles and put new poles in. Project Phoenix, as mentioned, we're at completion, so that has been exhausted. Home Key Project is that project with Astor Johnson and Morongo Basin Arch, the Home Key project, so that's moving forward. We actually acquired that property already. Re-roofing our roofs, the racquetball courts, the community services building, and then the senior center, I think, right? Yeah. So those are the three buildings. Safe routes to school, that's on 2 Mile and El Paseo. Street overlay, we already completed that. That was in Project Phoenix. The medium construction highway, that's by Stater Brothers. That's the medium island there on Stater Brothers. High signalized, unsignalized intersections we talked about earlier. El Rey, as we know, El Rey we've had through the years when there's a major rainstorm, that bridge washes away, and so that's our portion of the improvements there. The county's got the major improvements, but we had to fix our road because it's our road. So that's our portion of that. package treatment plant, that is in Project Phoenix, 2.4 million. The animal control building, 700,000. That's the improvement to the existing building and the quarantine building. And so, in summary, again, we're on track for the halfway point of the year. We have money in the bank. Our revenues are conservative, but on track. So that concludes my staff report for everything. And the recommendation in front of the council with that one change, which excludes Project Phoenix at this point. So Madam Mayor, once the council makes that motion, we can call for a second motion for the Project Phoenix item.
That's item number 3. That's the one if I make this motion, I just exclude item number 3. Do I have to leave the room when they discuss item number 3?
Yeah, and I'll be brief.
Okay.
It'll be a minute or two.
I got a question
I do
first.
too. Go ahead.
Okay, my question is in reference to safe routes to school.
Okay, yep.
Does that include bus stops? And what I mean is, like, for example, a kid has to walk to a bus stop.
It does not. So the program that, the Safe Routes to School that we apply for is sidewalks. So that's their safe route to school. So it's not the bus stop, because they're close to the schools, right? So that's why we did those on El Paseo and Tulare. So it does not include bus stops. The school can add bus stops there if needed, because it is a sidewalk, but the project.
No, it's not a sidewalk. Like, for example, where I stay, where the kids around me catch the bus, they gotta walk on Mesquite Springs to Indian Trail.
Oh, got you. So we can apply, so as we apply for this Safe Routes to School, by these 2 areas that we're discussing this evening, there could be future extensions of that. Mesquite could be one of them, if that's your question.
Well, really, because Indian Trail and Mesquite, the corner where they catch the bus at, is a really busy intersection.
Okay.
So they need like a bus stop or something, because now they just wait on the side of the road, and they have to cross that intersection.
So you're talking about a school, MUSD, Monroe Unified School District bus stop?
Yeah.
So what staff can do is reach out to them and communicate that with them and see, and I'll report back to the council to see if there's any ability for them to add a bus stop.
Yeah.
Right on the corner?
Yeah, that's where they
Indian
catch the
and
bus.
Mesquite? Okay.
And Frank, if you could just explain to the public about the social equity element of the general plan, please.
Sure. Just write this down real quick before I forget. Mesquite. So the council, I think it was last meeting. Actually, it goes even further back than that. Mayor Ogilvy, Councilmember Klink worked together in a subcommittee to bring forth a resolution to add a social equity element to our general plan. Our general plan is our roadmap of how the city goes forward, from the elements of it, from development, from police to open space to et cetera. There's 7 elements within the general plan. Recreations, one of the element that was recommended, and the council approved it, and authorized $42,800 to add this element. Terra Nova is our consultant that we assigned for this. Terra Nova did something very similar in Cathedral City. They are currently working on our housing element. Terra Nova is. Our consultant is actually on vacation this coming week, so I know I wanted to report out to kind of the time frame of completion on this. So the social equity element will take public comments. Very similar to, if you recall, the downtown specific plan. We heard from the public of what they wanted, which ultimately incorporates into the plan. We will do something very similar with the social equity element of our general plan. So I'm estimating that maybe over a 6-month time frame, we'll be able to bring that to the council for adoption.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, do I open?
Public?
Oh, we have it. Okay, thank you. Okay. To the council, our quick review of the mid-year financial report yielded these questions and concerns. Number one, short-term vacation rentals are of paramount concern to 29 Palms residents. Yet, in this financial report, there is no accounting of BHR-related revenue and expenses. Permit and TOT revenue are presented as a general categories without any detail. Similarly, there is no accounting for the expenses of the city that the city incurs on vacation rentals. We respectfully remind council that revenue figures are meaningless without a review of relevant expenses. Yet it appears that the city has never evaluated VHR revenue against VHR the expense to produce a true net income figure. We are alarmed to see the city is counting, number two, I'm sorry. We are alarmed to see that the city is counting on a budgeted TOT figure of $1.4 million, with the city manager projecting a potential $1.7 million in TOT revenue. Yet, in the first 6 months of the year, the city has collected only 1/3 of the budgeted amount. We fear the city is relying on an explosion of VHR permits and related revenue in the last 6 months of the fiscal year. This indicates that the city remains tone deaf to long-term residents advocating to save their neighborhoods by placing limits on VHRs. Although this is a summary report, we would expect particular attention to financial components of the issue facing the city. Yet VHRs are buried in generalities. We hope that council demands an immediate accounting of VHR revenue and expenses for the first 6 months of the year. Sincerely, 29 Palms neighbors. All righty. Thank you. So back to the council. Any questions?
No, I think it was a great review. I'm ready for motion. If you are, Madam Mayor?
Yes, please.
Okay, I make a motion that we, first of all, approve the stack recommendations for the financial report for the second quarter of the fiscal year in items 2, 4, and 5 are the ones I'm making a motion for right now. Excluding the $45,000 for the shades at City Hall. That'll come back to us later.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Klink,
Aye.
Councilmember Bilderrain,
Aye.
Councilmember Mintz,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Wright,
Aye.
Mayor Ogilvy.
Aye.
Approved 5-0.
Okay. And I'll excuse myself.
Shortcut probably right there is better. Well, if I knew the code, I would. What is it?
No, it's my anniversary. All of them are figured that way.
So thank you, Mayor, members of the council. We'll make this one quick. This was, prior recommendation from the council, and we've already acquired the property. So again, mid-year is about getting our budgets set, and this all came from the ARPA funding as well. But it's approving that interfund transfer $338,250 from the general fund to the sewer fund for the triplex that we acquired next to the site where we're going to build the package treatment plant. That's for future expansion of the plant. So
Move the item. I'll move it.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Bilderrain.
Aye.
Councilmember Klink,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Wright,
Aye.
Mayor Ogilvy.
Aye.
Approved 4-0-1.
Frank.
Just do it.
Frank.
I'm back. I just walked around.
All right.
Did a laugh. Yeah, I did a laugh. There you go.
Okay. Future council initiated items.
I have none, Madam Mayor.
I have done.
I have one. I would like for the city to look into the banners that hang from the light poles that celebrate certain holidays and everything. I think that would really add inclusiveness to the city, also make it look a lot more festive. I see it in other cities, so I would like to know what something like that would cost, like when they did the arts and they hung the banners from the light poles.
And don't forget the military,
Yeah,
too,
of course.
that we were looking into.
So we're going to try and get it every holiday if possible.
Second.
Third.
Yep.
All righty. Okay, public comments. This is the time for the public to address the city council on issues within the jurisdiction of the city council that are not on this agenda. All comments are to be directed to the city council and shall not consist of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum during their comments. There is a time limitation of 3 minutes per person. If you haven't already done so, please fill out your name and address slip and give to the city clerk. The city council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not on the printed agenda. Public comments are on specific agenda items will be deferred until consideration of the item on the agenda. All right. All right, no comments from the public. City manager update?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Actually, one, just to kind of piggyback, and I failed to just plant that because I wasn't looking for any direction during the mid-year budget report, but I wanted to plant this as well. So, for the ARPA funding, as mentioned earlier, we got $6.2 million, 3.1 last year, 3.1 this coming July. So the city council has given direction on many of the tasks that we just talked about tonight. The largest one, obviously, is the pool. But now you got to start thinking about next year, right? So again, not looking for any directions tonight. We just wanted to plant these, right? So some of the things from a manager's perspective that I hear that are out there, probably the number one issue that we hear is housing. So the low mod housing project that we're working on behind City Hall here, 70 units. It's tough to pencil, right? It's that's one of the things that we're working with the developer to figure out how to pencil it. When I say pencil it, developers got to come in and, they're in it for profit, right? Bottom line. I mean, most developers aren't going to do it if there's no profit, right? So if the cost versus the reward isn't there, that's where the tough part comes. The big challenge with that is lack of sewer. So from a manager's perspective, I think we need to look at that 3.1 million as a means to kind of push that over the goal line maybe. Another item that is out there is so Pioneer Park, as we talked about. Again, these are just planting seeds. Pioneer Park, as we talked about, we were not successful getting that grant. Yes, the project was $8 million. And yes, we will have $3 million, and it's not all of it, but maybe you could do a portion of that. So that may be something that you want to consider. As we kind of talked about in the budget report, there is, Hats to Sullivan, maybe the full length, maybe a partial. That will require some property acquisition and other means to kind of make that a reality, and there's those funds, to potentially do that. The last project is I've been briefing the council on, and we'll be bringing this forward February 22nd, is wastewater. So I think wastewater, if the council gives staff the hypersonic speed to go, we're going to need some resources to get to that hypersonic speed. So the 3.1 million could be used for that. So I just wanted to plant some of those seeds out there that I was remiss in the update. Not looking for anything tonight, but just something to think about as we go forward. Bird, I know, many of you, the community sees them out there. Interestingly, I know we had like 4 or 5 right here at City Hall earlier, and now there's only 1, so people are using them to get to point A from point B somewhere. I know it was asked, what do they cost? I know the mayor asked me, I think Councilmember Klink asked me. So it costs $1, to unlock the machine, or the scooter. So every ride starts with $1 to unlock it. Then it's per minute, so it's 39 cents per minute. The average ride has been 15 minutes, so it's only been 3 or 4 days, but the average ride has been 15 minutes. So that's $6.85 on average. We are closing out Project Phoenix. We're getting down to January was, the last draws of big expenses with the contractors, and now we're, finishing up some of the punch lists with it. So we'll be closing out the project very, very shortly. Just talking briefly about the tragic event that happened last night at the gymnasium. Staff is working on some mitigation plans. So, we as staff are going to be proactive on this and look at how we can, better keep our residents, our children safe at our brand new facility. We want to keep it nice and safe. So staff is working on that to prevent any of those issues from happening. Eli just texted me, and I got to make sure I point this way or the public can't hear me. Thought I'm loud enough, but maybe I'm not. So we do have some items within Project Phoenix that are still back ordered, supply chain issues, bleachers, scoreboards, benches, trash can, and tables. So there's other things still coming for the benefit of the project that are still supply chain and back ordered currently. And as mentioned earlier, a final reminder, tomorrow, State of the City, 5:30, and with tours at 4:30. So, thank you, Madam Mayor.
I do have a question about the medium on Highway 62. How far is Caltrans on it? Do you know?
Great question. So right now the schedule, and I just got the update, so perfect timing. So right now we're in the final stages of permitting with Caltrans. So the expected completion time frame is about August. So where we at in February currently? So
can grocery outlet start before then, or do they have to wait till that's complete before they can actually start the?
Well, so it's a city safety project, but to your point, Caltrans doesn't want people to cross the double yellow, and so what Caltrans is requiring is a medium island to prevent people from crossing a double yellow. So grocery outlet is looking to open, the latter part of 2022. So yeah, we're lining those two things up together.
Okay. Well, I just think maybe they could start, Caltrans would let them start construction, but not open. If we're done in August, then they could open in August.
It's a 6-month construction period. So grocery outlet's a 6-month construction period.
Okay. Well, thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
Anything else from staff? From the council? All righty, then this meeting is adjourned.